Here's what's coming up on today's show.
Just being open and having money conversations, which I know is uncomfortable for people, but you're better off having it before you get married than after.
Hello, this is Mark Silverman, managing member and founder of Silverman & Associates, and I'm also a certified financial planner professional. I want to welcome you to the Saving with Silverman podcast. I'm glad you're here. Each week, we'll discuss different financial planning topics because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life.
Well, let's get going today because we have a lot of interesting topics to cover here. Did you see the story about millions of coins being spilled onto a Texas highway after a tractor-trailer rig hauling $800,000 worth of dimes rolled over in an accident? That spillage led to the closure of a portion of US 287 for about half a day as workers used brooms, shovels, and large industrial vacuums to pick up all these dimes.
I didn't see that. I saw that they stopped making pennies a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw that too, man. You know,
they're going to get rid of pennies, and I think nickels are next.
What are you going to do with the pennies that you may have saved over the years?
Well, they could become valuable at some point.
Yeah.
A collector item. I mean,
that's what I'm thinking, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and why would they get rid of nickels? I don't know.
Well, because it costs more to make a nickel than all these coins. You know, pennies, I forget how many. I think it was 7 cents to make a penny, and a nickel costs like 13. I forget what the number is, but a nickel costs, it costs more than the actual value to make.
Yeah, and not a lot of people use cash these days.
We're getting rid of a lot of cash, a lot of change, and moving to whether it be crypto or just using credit cards or debit, Zelle, that sort of thing. So
exactly. Well, something to think about in the future. If you have some pennies stashed away at home somewhere, you might be a smart thing to hang on to some of those because they might be valuable at some point.
Maybe not in our lifetime, but it's somebody's lifetime.
Yeah, a little collector's item years from now.
Right.
Let's talk about summer loving. I know you're down for that.
Have me a blast, right?
Financial advice for the newlyweds or newly remarried out there. Whether you're tying the knot for the first time or getting married for the second or third time, whatever the case may be, the financial decisions and implications go way beyond the events of the big day, the marriage ceremony itself. Marriage is not only a romantic and legal partnership, but a financial one as well. So here's a few tips to get that union set up for long-term financial help. And one thing I think anybody can tell you is that a good idea is to open up the lines of communication. And that includes talking about money, which a lot of people don't.
It does. I mean, especially on first marriages because it's your first time and, hopefully for some people the last for most. But
hopefully, yes.
But the reality is, you don't really talk about money, and money's, financial is the number one cause of divorce. So I think, people going into, we have clients that are on second, third, and maybe even more marriages, and you realize that financial is a big part of it. So that's a conversation that you typically have when you're getting remarried. But, making sure you have a conversation about talking about money, really understanding, what you have, what your partner has. Is there debt? Is there investments? Who's going to pay for what? How much you have coming in, how much are you going to spend? Typically when you have a couple, there may be one that's a saver and one that's a spender. So trying to get on the same page there. But really understanding each other and setting, boundaries, if you will, as far as finances and how that's going to work. So it's not something you're fighting about when you have an issue later on. Maybe I just had a friend of mine tell me that he was calling me he had a friend of his who was looking to borrow from his retirement account, which you typically can't do, because he found out his wife had ran up $250,000 in credit card debt.
Oh my gosh.
Which, I said, if it was a 401k, you may be able to borrow 50, but that's about it. So yeah. And, those sorts of things obviously could kill the marriage, but can kill everything. So, having these open conversations and understanding, because usually it's one person that's handling the finances, and making sure that everybody's on the same page.
Wow, I can't get over that. You mentioned earlier that money is the number one cause of divorce, and that would include sex and other families and all these other things. It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, finance is number one.
Yeah. One thing that you should make sure you enjoy spending time with your spouse and doing things together. And that would include maybe, I'm waiting to hear what you have to say about this, maybe a joint account. And some people, that's all they have.
Yeah, I mean, some people will open a joint account or combine accounts initially. We do see, especially on second and third marriages, where they maybe keep accounts separate, or they open a joint account together, but they still have things separate. And there's a couple reasons for that. Maybe they're just used to it that way. And a lot of times too, when people get remarried, second and third, and this is probably where you'll probably ask me about estate planning, maybe you want to make sure each other is taken care of, but by the same token, you want your assets, if you're the husband, to go to your kids from maybe your previous marriage, and then the wife wants her assets to go to her kids from her previous marriage.
Sure.
And that's not always the case, but a lot of times that's what happens. So maybe sometimes it makes sense to keep things separately that way.
Yeah.
Estate planning can work. You can work those sorts of things in there. So there's a lot of different ways of doing it. We do planning a lot of times for couples that are getting remarried, and they want to make sure they're on the same page, and it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, and if it's your first marriage, things are a lot simpler, or should be.
Yeah, because you don't have anything, typically.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
Another thing that is a good idea is to certainly understand one another's financial history, and the way that you can get that is just by having conversations about that and making sure that you know what's going on with your partner and what has happened before in their life.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot going on. I mean, as far as, if there's bankruptcies, foreclosures, those sorts of things, you need to know about those going into it, and, making sure that person has good credit, or if they have a bunch of debt or that sort of thing, because you could get, drug into that, which is fine if you're willing to accept it, but you got to know that up front.
Yeah.
If you go into it not knowing that and you find out later, there could be some resentment. So just being honest and open about here's what, especially like you said with second and third marriages, here's where we've been, here's what I've got, here's what I've been through. And then each of you kind of discuss that sort of thing. Like you said, on first marriages, it's not usually because you're younger. You typically don't have anything. You're just starting off, but you may have student loans and things like that on that side as well. So you need to understand that too. So just being open and having money conversations, which I know is uncomfortable for people, but you're better off having it before you get married than after.
And this may be a little delicate to even talk about this, but, it might be a good idea to know, not the financial history, but what kind of shape your spouse's parents are in, from the standpoint of, maybe you might have to support them later on in their life.
Yeah, maybe the plan is for your in-laws to be moving in with you.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know. And that can cause some challenges. Same thing can be true with kids.
Yeah.
So you just gotta know what you're getting into, and like I said, these are conversations you want to have prior to getting married and have this stuff figured out rather than after the fact.
Yeah, the key is just to have conversations about all this kind of thing, and maybe you're thinking about getting married in the near future, or maybe getting married for the second time or third time or whatever, but might be a good idea to give Mark Silverman a call. Mark, why is it so important for folks to act on this now before they tie the knot?
We're halfway through the year, so it's a great time as any. I mean, if you wait till the end of the year, then typically will happen. You'll wait again. So there's no time like the present. This is an opportunity to have a conversation with me. It's a 10 to 20 minute phone call, answer any questions that you have. If I feel that there's something that we can help you with, I'll let you know that. Or if you just have a couple questions that I can help you with, I'm happy to do that as well. So it's just an opportunity. You get to speak to me. I'm not going to pawn you off on somebody else.
Oh, absolutely. Mark Silverman's number to call is 520-333-7601. Call or text, because making smarter choices about your money impacts the quality of your life. Mark Silverman's office in Tucson, serving you in southern Arizona, wherever you are. Call for your complimentary 20-minute introductory conversation. It's not going to cost you anything and not going to obligate you to do anything at all beyond that. 520-333-7601. You've been listening to the Saving with Silverman podcast. If you have any questions at all about your financial situation, please give Mark Silverman a call. Again, his number is 520-333-7601, or go online to savingwithsilverman.com. For Mark Silverman, I'm Ron Stutz. We'll see you next time on the Saving with Silverman podcast.
The Saving with Silverman podcast is brought to you by Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, based in Tucson, Arizona. The show is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere you listen to shows. Subscribe to the show on your favorite app today and never miss an episode. Just search for Saving with Silverman to find us, or visit savingwithsilverman.com to listen to past episodes, to contact Mark, and to learn more about how to make smarter decisions with your money.
Did you know that Mark Silverman also has a radio show? Tune in to Saving with Silverman Saturdays and Sundays at 3 p.m. on AM 790 KNST.
All matters discussed on this show are for informational purposes only. Opinions expressed are solely those of Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, and staff. All topics covered are believed to be from reliable sources. However, Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC makes no representation as to its accuracy or completeness. This show shall in no way be construed as a solicitation to sell securities or investment advisory services to residents of any state other than Arizona or where otherwise permitted. Topics should be discussed with your individual advisor prior to implementation. Fee-based financial planning and investment advisory services offered through Silverman & Associates Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Arizona. Insurance products and services are offered through Silverman & Associates, an affiliated company.